السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم. يقول الله تعالى بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم: يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء، واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. Indeed, all thanks is to Allah Azza wa Jal. We seek refuge in Him and we seek His forgiveness. We seek refuge in Allah from the evil of our own selves and the evil of our actions. For indeed, whomsoever Allah Azza wa Jal has guided to Islam, no one can misguide, and whomsoever Allah Azza wa Jal misguides, no one can guide. And I stand before all of you and I bear witness and I testify openly and freely that there is no deity, there is no Lord, there is no Ilah, there is none worthy of worship except Allah. And I testify openly and freely that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam ibn Abdullah is the last and final messenger and seal of all prophethood, O you who believe. Be God conscious of Allah as is His due, and do not die unless you are in the state of Islam. Be God conscious of Allah, one who created you from one soul, and from that soul many men and many women, and fear Allah in whose names you appeal to one another and honor family ties. Indeed, Allah is ever over you and I, an observer, a watcher. September 24th, 2024 marks a day where our dear brother in Islam was murdered by the justice system of America. A 55-year-old man who most of Americans did not know about until just a couple of days ago. where he spent 23 years of his life in prison on death row, despite DNA evidence that suggested his innocence. And throughout the 23 years of his life that he spent in prison, he started studying or learning this religion of Islam until he became, throughout the 23 years, he became a Muslim. And he kept on studying this religion, this faith, this Islam, until he even became an Imam within the prison itself, spreading da'wah and teaching others and leading others in the prison. Yet when his execution was scheduled by the Missouri Supreme Court, many Muslims around America were sending out petitions to be signed to advocate for his life. Many Muslims were sending out petitions across group chats, across social media platforms, advocating for this one brother. Yet despite the DNA evidence and despite all the petitions that were signed, Marcellus Williams was executed by lethal injection 3 days ago. And I'm not here, or my intention today is not to talk to you about forensics or to talk to you about the American justice system, but rather my intention today is to bring light to the Islamic perspective and what the Islamic lessons are based off of recent events. And I'd like to begin by taking a side step away from exactly what happened and take just a glimpse of the famous companion Amr ibn al-As radiallahu anhu, a famous companion of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam at the time that he accepted Islam. Because before he wasn't a Muslim, just like many of the companions before. Yeah, Amr ibn al-As, he comes to take the Shahada at the hands of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but he is hesitant. He withholds. And he tells the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I will not pledge allegiance to you until you forgive me of my previous sins. This is his one condition. SubhanAllah. Amr ibn al-As, the famous companion that generations later we'd be teaching our children about this companion. The famous companion Amr ibn al-As is hesitant here at this moment, at the time where he is embracing Islam, hesitant to pledge allegiance to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, saying, I will not pledge allegiance to you until you forgive me of my previous sins. And what was the reply of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he's saying, Oh Amr, do you not know that Islam wipes away the sins that came before it? وَكَمَا قَالَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم. That is that anyone from the moment they accept Islam are forgiven for any sin that they have done in the past. And they are not to be judged. They are not to be held accountable for the baggage that they have had, or the baggage that they had or are bringing from the past. They're not to be judged for the tattoos on their skin. They're not to be judged for anything that they have done into the past. The moment they accept Islam, The moment they accept Islam, they are forgiven for all of their past sins. Rather, they come out like a newborn baby. Even better than that, because if they are to be steadfast on the religion, if they are to be stead firm on the Iman, then Allah Azza wa Jal, in fact, turns their previous sins into good deeds. And they are only held accountable from that moment forward. From that moment forward. Again, I'm not here to claim who was the murderer or who really committed the murder. Rather, I'm here to say that the moment a person accepts Islam, they are forgiven for all of their previous sins. And so this is the Islamic perspective. That a brother becomes a brother the moment they accept Islam. A sister becomes a sister the moment she accepts Islam. And it is our duty to one another as brothers and sisters to help one another, especially at this critical time when someone embraces Islam. And even after that. And we saw this. We see this with Marcellus Williams. Approximately 5 days before his execution, Muslims around America sending petitions to be signed for non-Muslims and Muslims alike to save this one man who we think should not be executed, who the prosecutors did not think he should be executed. That the jurors who sentenced him to death thought that he should not be executed. That the victim's family thought that he should not be executed. And so the big question is, why was Marcellus Williams executed? With all the petitions, with all the people, even the victim's family, who thought that he should not be executed. Why was he then executed? And the only reply that I can give is the beautiful hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in which he is advising Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, when he says, and I quote, "Know that if the nations were to gather to benefit you, they would not be able to benefit you without the will of Allah. And if the nations had gathered to harm you, they would not be able to harm you without the will of Allah. رُفِعَتِ الْأَقْلَامُ وَجَفَّتِ الصُّحُفُ. The pens have been lifted and the pages have been dried. It's already been decreed. It's already been written down. Nothing happens, good or bad, without the will of Almighty Allah. That we try our very best, and when the results come, we submit to the divine decree, whether we understand it or we do not understand it. This is what it means to be a Muslim. Yet you will find those who are not Muslim or do not understand the divine decree posting on social media platforms that Marcellus should be alive today. While this is not the Islamic mindset, we don't say shoulda, woulda, coulda. This is not the Islamic mindset. When the divine decree happens, we are Muslims. We submit to the divine decree, to that which Allah Azza wa Jal has already prescribed. That when your time comes, your time has come. There's nothing that you can say about it. You cannot delay it, you cannot bring it forward. كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةُ الْمَوْتِ. Every single soul shall taste death. This is the divine decree. Could be today, could be tomorrow, could be in the next hour. And there's nothing that we can decide about who, what, when, or where, or how. The only thing that we can ask ourselves, or the only thing that we can do or ask ourselves, is ask ourselves, what have we done to prepare for it? And I ask Allah's forgiveness for me and for all of you. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. As we know, when it comes to death row, you're given a choice about the last meal you can have. You're given a choice about the last statement you want to have. You're given a choice about how you want to spend the last moments of your life. And I want to stop here and reflect and look at what a blessing of Allah it was upon Marcellus, that he knew when he was going to die. Because there's not a single soul here that knows when they're going to die. There's not a single soul here that knows when they're going to die, where they're going to die, how they're going to die, what land they're going to die. This is what Allah Azza wa Jalla tells us. وَمَا تَدْرِي نَفْسٌ مَاذَا تَكْسِبُ غَدًا وَمَا تَدْرِي نَفْسٌ بِأَيِّ أَرْضٍ تَمُوتُ إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلِيمٌ قَدِيرٌ. That there is no soul, there is no one, there is no soul that knows what he will attain tomorrow. And there is no soul that knows in what land they will die. Indeed, Allah is all-knowing, all-aware. All-knowing, all-aware. That is, you can die today, you can die tomorrow. And regardless of how you're going to die, we need to ask ourselves, how would you live the last moments of your life? And then ask yourself, why am I not living that moment right now? How would you live the last moments of your life if you knew that you were going to die? And then why aren't you living it now? If you were to spend those last moments of your life leaving off that sin, why aren't you doing it now? If you were to spend those last moments of your life in ibadah, in salah, why aren't you doing it now? And what a blessing of Allah it was on Marcellus, that he knew that this was going to be his last salah. How many people know when their last salah is going to be? And I want you to imagine and think for a second, if you knew that this Jummah would be your last salah, how would you pray your last salah? Imagine how he prayed his last salah. What would you do? Would you stay in sujood a bit longer? Would you stay in ruku' a bit longer? Would you ask Allah's forgiveness? Would you ask Allah for paradise? Would you have more khushu', more focus? How would you pray your last salah? He knows this is going to be his last salah. Imagine how he prayed it. And what a blessing of Allah it was on Marcellus, that his name is and will be known throughout America and throughout the world for Muslims to pray for him. And what a blessing and what a mercy of Allah it was on Marcellus that he got to choose his last words. Many people do not get to choose their last words. Death may come to you suddenly. You don't get to say what you're going to say. You don't get to say the last words. Yet Allah blessed him to speak his last words that echoed across America and the world. All praise be to Allah in every situation. In every situation. Those were his last words. He didn't try to fight it. He didn't try to prove his innocence. He accepted the qadar. He accepted the divine decree. And this is what he says in the interview before his death. And I quote, "Whatever Allah determines, I'm satisfied with it." Allahu Akbar. There is no religion that can give you that sense of peace in the face of death except Islam. And this is the Iman. This is the Iman that he had in his heart. Whatever Allah decrees, I'm satisfied with it. And he further continues to mention the beautiful hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying, "La yatamannaina ahadakumul maut min durrin asabah." لا يتمنين أحدكم الموت من ضر أصابه فإن كان لابد فاعلا فليقل اللهم أحيني ما كانت الحياة خيرا لي وتوفني إذا كانت الوفاة خيرا لي. That none of you should wish for death. None of you should wish for death. If he must do so, then he should supplicate, then he should say to Allah, "Oh Allah, let me live so long as life is good for me. And take my soul so long as death is good for me." SubhanAllah. That is, live life to the fullest. Live life striving to do the best actions. Seize the opportunity of life to serve Allah in the best possible manner. But do not forget that your time, my time, and everyone's time will come. And that all of us will return to Allah alone. وَكُلٌّ آتِيهِ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ فَرْدًا. And so to conclude, Marcellus Williams, may you rest in peace. From the very moment you were named deceased, from your life we take many lessons of your Islam and your obsession, how Islam became your obsession. If you make it to the morning, do not expect to make it to the evening. If you make it to the evening, do not expect to make it to the morning. That is the advice of the Prophet. Take it as a warning. Your last words have spread across the nation. All praise be to Allah in every situation. We do not judge you for whatever has happened in the past. Although your name has been put on broadcast, you've shown us how to remain steadfast and to live your life as if it is your last. Ask Allah Azza wa Jal to forgive him and have mercy on Marcellus Williams. Ask Allah Azza wa Jal to forgive all the Muslims, those who are alive and those who are dead. Ask Allah Azza wa Jal to enter all of us into Jannat al-Firdaus among the prophets and messengers. Ask Allah to give us an easy death, husn al-khitam. Ask Allah Azza wa Jal to elevate the pain and suffering of all the Muslims around the world, including those in China, Palestine, Lebanon, Sudan, and Yemen. Ask Allah Azza wa Jal to accept from us and have mercy on us. Ibadallah, inna Allah yamuru bil adli wal ihsani wa ita'i dhil qurba. وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون فاذكروا الله العظيم يذكركم واشكروه يزدكم واستغفروه يغفر لكم واتقوه يجعل لكم من امركم مخرجا واقيموا الصلاه